Welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast, your weekly dose of disc golf. Hello and welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast. I am your host, John Nicholson. If you are listening on a podcast app, do me a favor, please leave a 5-star review. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That helps the podcast a lot. Without further ado, though, the man we have on the podcast today, our special guest, Mr. Bradley Williams. How are you doing today, Bradley?
I am a little tired, but I'm still energized, so I'm glad to be here. Feeling good.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. We are up in Massachusetts. We are at the MVP Open at Maple Hill. You have some history on this course, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I've been here for about 3 or 4 years. I've got my first pro win, my first Elite Series win here, and it's always been a cool place to come play, throw some shots.
That's awesome. I knew you had a win here. I was not aware until, by the way, he won the 2022 Preserve Championship as well this year. So 2 Elite Series wins. I was not aware that was the very first Disc Golf Pro Tour event until this year. And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Maple Hills is a pretty special place for you then?
Yeah, coming as a guy from Texas and traveling across the country to play an event, this is a pretty special one. This is always one of the events that I would spend money to, I would lose money to come play this event. If the hotel and airfare were more than I cashed out, I would still do it at this place. So it's always been one of a vacation type tournament. That's
very cool. And I actually I did a quick look at your career wins, and I realized immediately after winning the Vibram Open back then, you won the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, which at that time wasn't an NT, but it's been an NT many, many years. So that was really cool to see as well. I was like, he was on fire.
Yeah, you always kind of linger that golden glow after a big win. You usually have it for a week or two, where the shots and putts are still just dropping from all over the place. It sort of is an effect.
That's super cool. I hope to experience that one day. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you're just so locked in, and then you're it comes back as a validation. The community's yeah, you won an Elite Series event, and then you believe it, of course, because you did it, and then you just the next few rounds you play are going to be just golden. You're gonna have so much fun just throwing a casual round somewhere. You're gonna throw some cool shots after that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we are actually coming to you today. I know you probably just see a white wall here. We are in the extra bedroom at our Airbnb because that is we got a mobile podcast studio. It's hard to always find a decent place to set up. The audio actually sounds better than I thought it would. Very, very hard surfaces in here, but
yep.
Let's dive a little bit into the interview. I was going to introduce you as the Texas Cactus, because I'm from Texas. I've always heard you referred to as Bradley Williams, the Texas Cactus, but I realized I have no idea where that nickname came from. How did you become the Texas Cactus?
I was still playing MA1, and I was called Nopalito by some of the Spanish guys, and I had to ask what that meant, and they were like, it means cactus. It means you're abrasive, you're prickly, The joke was if you get close to Bradley, you might get pricked.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I'm gonna call myself the Texas Cactus after that, because it doesn't roll Nopalito. The Nopalito, people don't even know what that word means. But I was like, I'm gonna call myself the Texas Cactus.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome to hear the origin story on that. So that happened in MA1, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm from Texas too. I've always just known you as a great Texas disc golfer. I didn't start playing until 2017. When did you start playing, and kind of take me through your start in disc golf?
So I started in 2006. That's when I was introduced to the disc and the basket concept, and I played a little bit during the summer. And then I didn't play again until late 2006. And then it was, I met a touring, an elite level player, but he was a kid still, Ian Hovey. He's from Austin, and he was so good at throwing the disc. He was one of the kids that could throw 500 feet when he was like 14-year-old.
Wow.
And he would bang putts from like 80 feet. So whenever you see that, it's like, it's an eye-opening. Like if you were to go to step on the course today and watch a lot of pros play, and then you watch like Gannonburg step up and throw, it would be a big difference on the way they throw and putt compared to even good players.
Yeah.
So when I met this kid, I was like, oh, dang, like this is insane. This is way higher level than what I'm seeing. And I was intrigued. So that was a catalyst to like, oh, I need to like get much better. Like you can get much better at disc golf than what I thought was like the norm. Because at the local courses, you just see who you see.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when it all kind of came down to like practicing, like learning how to throw discs better.
Awesome. Yeah. That's very cool. You made me think of a very funny story that I've never told publicly, so I feel like now is a great time to tell it. I'll be very concise because I'd love to actually have Paige Pierce on here one day and tell her this story and see if she remembers. Okay. Paige is from Plano, Texas. I claim Plano, Texas currently. She was, I think this was like 2012, so it was right before Paige like blew up, but she was still very, very good. I only had played disc golf a few times with an ultimate disc. And Paige was explaining to me while I was working at Plano Super Bowl how she threw a disc well over 300 feet. And I called BS on her. And I was like, no, you don't. And I was like, once I started disc golfing, realized who Paige was, I was like, I am such an idiot. Like in that it's because people who I played with I had no idea what people were capable of in disc golf at that point in time. I was just like, no, it's like people throw ultimate disc, right? So it's amazing that early on you had somebody who kind of opened your eyes to like, wow, there's a lot of crazy possibilities you can have with a disc.
Yeah. And knowing that now in hindsight, like there's no better place than to recommend people come out and check out a Disc Golf Pro Tour event if it's in driving distance of the community, even if you have friends that are on the fringe. Like just seeing someone else throw the disc could be the catalyst for you starting to get it. And then here I am as a pro many years later because of what I saw one day at a park.
That's awesome. Yes, humongous plug for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. If you have not been to an event live, watching the top pros throw up close is incredible. Even when I go out and watch them, I'm like, dang, these guys are good. Yeah. Like it's very, very cool. With that, your start in 2006. Did you have any sort of athletic background or previous sports you played before you got into disc golf?
So in high school, I played like a mix of all the sports. I like played basketball, and I ran for our school, and then I played baseball. I played football, and then I did soccer, and then I did bicycle motocross and motocross on the side. So I had like decent hand-eye coordination. Like I wasn't like a first team on any of the teams. I was second string almost every sport I played, but it was like right in that wheelhouse of like, man, if you just focus on one of these sports, like you could probably be a starting athlete. But I played, I would just like drop out and like not drop out, but next year I wouldn't enroll for one sport so I could play the other one. So like every year I would just try to play I would try to make it the team.
Okay.
So when I got into disc golf, it was actually due to an injury from basketball. So my ankle actually is still very much affected from the basketball injury. I had to wear like a brace, and I wasn't very mobile. And so originally I thought disc golf would be a fun way to like get out and walk and sort of like play a game, but I couldn't run and do anything dynamic. I couldn't play basketball. I couldn't play football. I couldn't go to the motocross track. So when I saw disc golf, I was like, well, at least I can get out and play a game, and it's low impact.
Yep.
At least that's what I thought at the time.
Compared to some of those,
yeah.
for sure, but much higher impact at our level, for sure.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Which, if any of those, do you think like the skill set transferred a little bit into disc golf, or was it more of like the work ethic that transferred?
So my opinion is the BMX transferred the most. So like if you are a BMXer or you're a skateboarder, for instance, I think those two sports translate to disc golf pretty well. I played baseball, so I think, batting and throwing, like obviously I could throw a thumber pretty quick, and like swinging a bat is sort of like throwing a sidearm, or throwing a baseball is sort of like throwing a sidearm. So I think obviously that helped. But the BMX and the skateboarding is because in those games, you have to, like in BMX, for instance, you have to clear 2 mounds of dirt. Like you have to launch, fly through the air, and then land. And if you don't, you're falling for however high you are. And sometimes those jumps can launch you like 15 feet up. So you could be falling from 15 feet if you make a mistake. So the big part of it is you have to like visualize what you're going to do. You have to have like had practice, and then you have to like commit. And you have to commit as you're pedaling in, because how it works is you're on like a hill usually, and you have to guess how many cranks to get the speed up, and then you drop in and you get a bunch of speed, and you launch on the first jump, and you just take flight. And you like adjust the bike, and you nose the bike down. And as soon as you catch the first landing, you're in. You're locked in. You're like, I got the flow. And then you just ride out the jumps as you're flowing. Because if you catch the first one and you land it well, you have the speed to continue. But you have to visualize that, and then have a plan, and then commit. And like I think that's what translates the best to disc golf. Like from my experience, like I see a disc, I see the line, I know the shot, and I'm gonna commit to it. And I feel like that helps me the most.
Wow. I would not have guessed that from all the sports, but from like a mental perspective, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. So moving into the next question, it's 2006 to 2008. Mm-hmm. That's the time setting for this.
Yes.
What are Bradley Williams' strengths and weaknesses? And then fast forward that to maybe present day, or maybe a few years ago, whichever you pick. How have those strengths and weaknesses evolved? What have you gotten better at, and what would have they changed at all?
So weakness wise, throwing high hyzers and putting was like really, really bad. Like I could not figure out how to throw a high hyzer with a disc, but I could throw a low flat shot. So low flat shots, like really low flat shots, are something that I do well still today. And that was sort of like an early strength. Like as long as I could throw it flat and sort of low, I could play. But the moment I needed to throw like really high, especially on a hyzer angle, I like couldn't figure it out.
Interesting.
And then putting, my first putter was a birdie, and I could never get it in the basket. And so like putting was like a mental block. Like I didn't see putting as like an enjoyable thing. I saw putting as like an effect, or like the outcome of how hard you work. Like you worked, you threw a shot, you navigated a par 4, you navigated a par 3, and then it's not good unless the putt goes in.
Gotcha.
And that's like a really big mental fallacy that you don't want to have, but it did affect me, and I carried it for like that burden for a long time. Now I would say like putting is something that I look forward to as an opportunity. I don't necessarily look at anything like birdie, par, bogey. Like I'm not going, this is a birdie putt anymore. I don't go, this is a bogey putt. I go, this is like an opportunity for me to make a putt, and I believe I can make this putt. And if I don't, I'm laying it up. So that's a good thing. That's like a thing that's changed. And then I can throw hyzers now. Like I still don't feel like really great about like launching super steep hyzers, but I can throw them. So like those are the skills that have gone up. And then the flat shots I still kind of kept.
Awesome. Yes, I would say from what I've heard and experienced, your technicality at hitting lines, especially very direct lines through the woods, is like how I would describe the quintessential like Bradley Williams fairway shot.
Truly, yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
In fact, bringing it to the putting that you were saying, just like really being dialed in with your putting now, I think the first time I ever saw you play was 2018 winter warm-up. Mm-hmm. So out in Louisville, Texas, I believe Dynamic Disc did like a video. I want to say like Robert McCall commentated on it or something. I think they came out there. And at that point in time, I was so new to the game. I was just like watching every video I could. And I was like, dude, this guy has not missed a putt. What is going on? Like it was, so if anybody wants to go watch that video of Bradley not missing putts, it's out there. I promise.
Okay. That's awesome.
You're like, wow, a random B tier video from 2018.
Yeah. I'm always like cringe. Like what outfit was I wearing? It's probably basketball shorts and a dry fit.
I will say I only remember the putting, not the outfit. So I hope it's good. It's interesting if nothing else. So kind of shifting gears a little, we've talked about strength and weaknesses. This is just a question I like to ask. It's a completely hypothetical question. If you could go back in your disc golf career and like change something, you retain all the knowledge you have now, but you can change anything at any point in time. Would you change something? And if so, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. It's hard to think that you could change something and still be the person you are now. I think that I would have changed like my outlook on the sport. Because before, I just didn't even think it was a sport, even though that I played. And I didn't think that what I was doing was like, I wouldn't even tell people that I played disc golf. Like if I went to a restaurant and someone asked me like what I was doing that day, I wouldn't say I was playing disc golf professionally. So I think what I would do is I would go back and change like how I viewed the sport as a whole, and just give it a little bit more like just like I've learned that it's better to just be who you are and just tell your truth out there. And if people accept you, they don't. But it's better to like do that than maybe try to hide it and not be who you are.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to pretend that doesn't matter or that's not good enough. So that's what I would change. I would just be like, man, just you're a disc golfer. You play disc golf. Be happy about it.
I love that. What just out of complete curiosity, what time frame was that?
The following, like the acceptance part?
Yeah.
Much later, actually. I was stubborn enough to like be that this way for years, even though that I didn't fully know that like I should probably make this a change, but because I procrastinate, I'm stubborn about things. I just let it go. Like I just let it go. I didn't address the problem. So that's something that's been happening for many years. Probably didn't stop for about 2 or 3 years ago is probably when I finally started to like embrace that this is what I do with my time and like I'm happy with it.
Awesome. Is that did that come about right around the same times where you started doing a lot of lessons and things like that as well?
Yeah, actually that did coincide with like uptake in lessons. I think maybe that was some satisfaction. Like I'm teaching people to play. Like that could have been a very like good experience with like I'm helping people play disc golf and like I enjoyed this. This is like something that I like to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So shifting gears entirely.
Okay.
I like asking people about their routines.
Sure.
Not super in depth, but just what kind of routines you have and things like that. So first up, do you have like a set practice routine when you're on tour? And what would that be?
So the routine these days is joint mobility.
Okay.
So like that's just like a staple. Like try to get all the joints like moving before I even throw a disc. That's a priority. So that's like a routine that I always do. And that kind of starts to build up I'm at a disc golf course for a purpose like routine. I feel like just going through the motions of like getting warmed up physically gets me like ready to be like the Bradley Williams disc golfer. Because at this stage, every time I go to get a disc out of my bag, it's because I'm intending to like learn a course or play a tournament. So everything's very purpose driven instead of just for fun. Because like the whole fun throw a disc thing is sort of, you lose that when you choose to take the professional path. I feel like everything's about like how can I get better? How can I improve? How can I be consistent? You're always working on something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the joint mobility is definitely a routine now. And then when I'm at the course, it's about focusing on like driving the disc forward. I think that's one of the main routines that I try to do is like every time I'm throwing a shot, I want to think to drive the disc forward down the fairway, and then throw a lot of fairway drivers and putters like in between. Like even though I might throw a driver in the tournament, like I make sure that I play from shorter out of position spots. So that way, okay, here, this is where I can, if I land here, like this is something that could happen. Like, let's play it out. Like, at least we know like what to do.
Yeah. More familiarity with the course.
Yeah. So playing much further shots away from where you want to be. Like I make sure I do that a fair bit. Not just always practice the sweet.
Just right from the tee. That's the only thing that's going to happen, right?
Perfect every time. Yeah.
And then, do you do any sort of field work or separate putting practice when you're out on tour?
It doesn't seem like that happens much right now. The only time that I go, like, even if I played a round, like say round 1 happened, the only times that I'm going to go back out to a field are if things aren't working. Like if I'm not in a rhythm and I don't have a good release, or I'm not feeling like I'm feeling fatigued, or I'm feeling weak, or I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling, if it's not like where I want, I'm going straight out. Like after I eat and take a little break, I'm going straight back to a field and I'll throw. And then if I don't figure it out, I might do it in the morning before. I might go to another place, another disc golf course on the way to the tournament, and like grind it out. But if things are working and I'm like following my game plan, I only practice during like practice days.
Got you. Very cool. And even with the putting, or do you have like a set putting? I know some people are like, no, I putt like 2 30-minute sessions a day or something. Or is it based more on like how your putting feels?
We do like to do putting, but if it's feeling good, then I just work on it, because I always give myself like an hour 20 before the round. So I'm always going to get an extra at least 20 minutes dedicated just to putting every day that I play. So like that's usually enough. So that's about it for my putting routine. Yeah.
Very cool. So as far as more routines go, workout routines. Mm-hmm. Do you have a workout routine while you're out on tour?
Definitely not. Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. Definitely don't.
Does it change in the off season at all? Do you have anything you focus on physically in the off season?
So the off season, there's always like cardio, and then there's like a workout routine. Like I usually always have a workout routine in the off season, like a program. Like I'll have like a stricter diet because I don't have to travel to random cities, so I can always buy the same foods. So I usually have like a really strict diet, and then I have like at least a 5-day workout routine where I'm targeting different parts of my body. And then there's like a little bit more cardio, like maybe more running or maybe biking.
Awesome.
So the off season is usually when I work out, where I can at least confidently say, yeah, like I'm working out.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I've asked this question a few times, and the general consensus is like, well, not everywhere has a Planet Fitness, and it's hard to like, the schedules from week to week are just so different depending on what time you tee off or what is going on special event wise that week, that it's very hard to train consistently.
Yeah. And like, let's say you're going to come into the weekend that it rains one of your practice days, then you're stressed knowing that you're going to have to cram maybe 2 rounds in now, the next day. And then you're like, then you don't want to go to the gym or do like a kettlebell workout. But like we still do that sometimes. Like we have a weights in our car and I have resistance bands. So like, we can just go to a grassy field and do like a set. It just doesn't happen like on a schedule.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we have time and when we're feeling it.
Very cool. No, that's the general consensus I've seen so far, apart from a select few that I know about, but I haven't interviewed yet. So I'm looking forward to see kind of where everybody falls along that spectrum.
Yeah. And like how they feel afterwards. Like, do you putt well after you like work out really hard, or I want to know the effects of like being real scheduled.
Yeah, same. Because I know that whenever I've been on a set workout schedule, it always, depending on what I worked out that day, like maybe, let's say I did upper body and my biceps are feeling it a little bit. I know that I'm consciously thinking about that in my putts sometimes. Whenever I actually like feel my bicep in extension, I'm like, oh, that's strange. Like, I don't want to feel that way during a tournament at all.
Yeah, pumped up.
Not pumped up. We gotta be ready. So that brings us to the new segment that we are going to have on the podcast. And I promised my wife I would play this noise as we intro the segment, called Steph's Curious Questions. We thought this would be a fun addition because we talk just a lot of just straight disc golf facts kind of on the podcast. And I wanted something that's a little more fun. So the point of Steph's Curious Questions is basically, I don't supervise this. My wife figures out questions. I tell her who the guest is and questions she wants to ask them, or maybe she even stalks their social media to try and think of things she wants to ask them. She may or may not have liked a post of Bradley's from November 2021. So if you see that it's not that weird, I promise.
Okay.
But
very specific.
I know, right? Here are a few questions that Steph has for you. Number 1, if you could trade lives with any one person on tour, who would it be and why?
I think I would trade with either Gannon Burr or Anthony Barilla.
Is it because of their youth?
It's because of their long arms.
Ah.
So I would love to have like the wacky, wavy like arms and just see like what it would be like to like fling a disc with that much lever length.
They both crush it.
They really crush it. And when you watch them play at the height that they throw the disc, it goes so high and then it gets nose down and then starts to fly. And like I don't have the ability to throw a disc like that, so I don't know how fun that could be to have that as an option. It would be kind of fun to like play for a whole year and travel the country and play a bunch of courses with like arms like that, and just to see like what can you do out here, you know?
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That is a great answer and a fun answer too. I love that. All right, question number 2. What's something that's true or something that you believe is true that nobody agrees with you on?
Man, I know there's some good ones here, and like but I have such a terrible like memory.
You're good. It's such a tough question. It's like, oh, what? I know there's got to be something.
There's definitely some good ones, but unfortunately, like you'd have to ask like Lucky or something.
Oh, you're good. If you remember it though, interrupt me. No matter what I'm saying, I wanna know.
Okay.
And then the easy one. Well, it's not an easy one, but it's an easy one to answer because there's only 2 options. The age-old Texan question: In-N-Out or Whataburger?
Definitely Whataburger.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, you had to have like at least 2 beers minimum. Probably not more than 3. Like 2 to 3 beers you had to have had. And it has to be late. It has to be like 9 or 10, and someone drives you to the Whataburger and you sit in line for a long time.
Way too long.
Way too long. And you're kind of upset about it, and then you get the burger and you're like, okay, this is good.
And you're like, what time do you start serving honey butter chicken biscuits again?
Yeah, exactly. Those are super addicting if you get a taste for it.
Yep. I had a boss. I worked at a golf course, and my boss made me every morning. He gave me money to go buy my own breakfast, but he said, I want 2 honey butter chicken biscuits. And I was like, you got it, man. Let's do this. I guess I'm going to Whataburger.
Chicken, biscuit, and a bunch of honey.
Oh, goodness. Who would have thought it'd be so delicious? I haven't had one of those in forever. All right. I'm glad you gave an answer because I cop out to that question every time. I'm like, well, do I want a burger with mustard or do I want a burger with Thousand Island? Because that completely depends on which place I go to.
It's very true.
And people are like, no, you got to pick. And I'm like, well, I don't know.
I like mustard in general.
Fair.
I like vinegar-based like sauces. So like that tart taste is something that I prefer. And Thousand Island, like maybe if it was like a Reuben or something and like warm, I'd be into it. But typically not that big of a fan of In-N-Out.
Okay, well there you go. Bradley Williams, a Whataburger guy.
I wouldn't say I'm a Whataburger guy. But compared to those two, I'm just gonna go and pick one.
That's fair. Awesome. Well, that was the first Steph's Curious Questions. I really enjoy that noise. All right, back to some serious questions. Questions I asked people, every person who comes on, who's a player at least, to share a piece of advice you would give to a player just starting or like a beginner in disc golf. What would a actionable piece of advice for them be?
Okay, if you're a beginner out there and you're listening, or you're listening and you want to get a tip to give it a beginner, my tip, and might be hard to translate, but it's to try to learn how to commit to whatever shot. Like try to think about what you're gonna do, like in your head. Like try to see what your plan is, and like maybe describe it, because maybe you won't. If you don't start thinking that way, like you maybe won't be able to like have a plan. So try to imagine like what you can do with the disc. Like after a couple throws, like you're just maybe barely throwing it. But once you've done it a few times, at least, let's say you were just throwing the disc 60 feet with your wrist. A couple of times, you're going to do a very similar shot multiple times. So like that's a flight. It doesn't go very far, but that's a consistent flight. So like even if that was the shot that it was called for, you can imagine it, you've done it, And then now just imagine it and commit. And that I would say start doing that as soon as you can. Like imagine the shot and then just commit. And and like eventually like you're going to work your way up to more and more shots. But that's something that I would try to do as soon as you could.
Well, that's perfect. I don't think commitment to shots is talked about enough in disc golf. How important it is to pick what you want to do and commit to it. Because if you waver at all, especially at our level or in conditions like we had today, very, very gusty and windy conditions, if you're wavering on a throw or a putt and you just aren't committing, like, one, it's probably not going to do what you want it to do. And two, you learned nothing because you didn't even commit to the original action.
Yeah. And that's like, that goes into like the mid to advanced level thing. You cannot learn anything if you don't fully commit, because if you are too scared to commit and you half throw it, then you don't learn anything about the disc or where your timing is. You literally learn nothing valuable, and everything is just going to be bad data. But if you went all in and committed, at least you're going to know like what you saw.
Yep, you're gonna have a for sure outcome there.
Yep. Yeah.
You're like, oh, I did what I thought it was, like what I thought I should do, and that was not good, or that was great.
Yeah, and you'll learn, and you can make the adjustment accurately that way.
Awesome. So commitment is the key to learning there.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's one of the things that you'll hear me say if you play on my card enough out there. It's like one of the things that I always say. It's like people always want to get caught up in how talented everyone is, but it's not the talent that you're seeing. It's commitment. The person who wins the tournament every week is the person who committed the most on all their putts and all their drives. It's always the same. That's what people are seeing out there. It's like these people are committing more than people who are finishing below them. It's commitment is what wins tournaments every week. Who is the most committed on all their putts, all their shots, all their scrambles? That's what wins.
Wow.
Everyone's got talent.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I need to take some of that advice.
Yeah. If you want to do better on the Pro Tour, focus on how much you truly commit.
I like that. It's so easy to waver, but commitment, I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. I believe that is all of the questions I have for you, at least according to my handy dandy note page over here. But thank you so much for joining me. Before we go, though, do you have anything you want to plug, or where can people find you? Any of that type of stuff?
Yeah. So Instagram is my most active social account right now. It's Bradley Disc Golf. It's at Instagram. Next season, I may start a YouTube channel, but I have to decide like what I want to take my time to make. I haven't decided like what direction I want it to go. But right now, yeah, if you want to like just see what's going on, I post here and there. That's on Instagram. And then of course, if I'm at the course and I'm on the roster, you can just come say hi like after the round. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for just agreeing to come on the podcast. I very, very much appreciate it.
I'm very much a captive audience here.
We're staying at the same Airbnb, and I was like, Bradley, do you want to be on the podcast? And he's like this week? I was like, yeah, this week. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So I appreciate him being a good sport about it. That's awesome. Yes. And thank you to you guys for listening. I just pointed at the camera for all you audio listeners out there. I know you can't see that. But once again, please leave a review. And if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye.